Will that capture the Zoom then?
It says live on Facebook up in the top right now.
Okay.
I would say we're probably live.
All right, I think we're live.
Yes.
Your meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Hey, everybody. You know, as this year goes on, we might actually master it before the end of the year of how to do Zoom and Facebook Live and Instagram Live and all the things we have to do. So thank you all for whoever is tuning in to the Celebrating the Brand Ambassador episode 2. Well, obviously, if you're on my page, you know my name's Elaine Duff. And with me is the lovely ERIK Andersson and TREVOR SCHNEIDER, both William Grant's employees and brand ambassadors. So every week we're going to be hosting this show. I'm going to be bringing on 2 new brand ambassadors. Next week we have Lauren Paler coming on from CLIP, and I'm not sure. I'm hoping one of her counterparts is coming on. So just putting that out there. And this is a show just to kind of see, you know, what brand ambassadors do, you know, that we're not just credit cards with heads, you know, that our job has challenges. You know, we all have different roles and what we do. Every company is different. And in that company, every job position is different depending on the brand. So we're going to talk about a little bit like training, some of the best practices, things that are changing right now, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to start off with just saying, ERIK, you work, I'm going to ask what brand you were. You work for Hendrix. And how did they find you? Like, where did they find you?
Well, thank you, first of all, very much for having me, Elaine. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you.
It's a little bit of a story here. I started with Hendrix Gin in the summer of 2012. And as a bartender working in London a long time ago, I got to, you know, admire and have these presenters and brand ambassadors like Angus Winchester, Ian Burrell, and Xavier Padovani presenting.
The originals.
Yeah, like the real OGs on the European side of things. It was so inspiring to know their characters and wealth of knowledge and their inspiring way of communicating it. So fast forward to Tales 2011, I believe it was. I was planning to head out with to the events, you know, in the evening. But Xavier texted me and asked me, "Can you work the Hendrix event tonight?" And I'm like, "Yes, please, and thank you." So we just slipped into something a little bit more workable, and we worked that event. We had an amazing time. I think we made about 800 Ramos Gin Fizz that night.
Of course,
between
you're in New Orleans.
30 bartenders.
What drink? Why would they choose a Ramos Gin Fizz? I know it's a New Orleans drink, but still, Jesus.
Yeah, but we were probably 30 bartenders behind the bar. Wow. In that very large bar. So it did work out in the end of the day. But then because I knew Xavier before, and he, you know, we chatted a bit. In the spring of 2012, on his Facebook page, he announced that Hendrix Gin was looking for a brand ambassador based in Asia who could speak Mandarin. And I've been studying Chinese for quite a while, a few years in Sweden, in Singapore, and
really?
I lived in China. Yeah, and I lived in China and opened a nightclub there in 2008.
Oh, so, wow, I did not know that. Very cool.
Yeah, so the job was basically, there was an ideal job for me, living in Hong Kong, but looking after East Asia. So I replied to a Facebook post, and many interviews later and trips to London to the headquarters, and back, you know, I got the position. So I moved from Stockholm to Hong Kong in August 2012.
Wow, that's quite a story. That's really interesting. And also the fact that you're speaking Mandarin. You and Chris Lauder probably have a lot of conversations.
Yeah, and it's funny because I haven't lived in China at the same time that he has, because we've been overlapping so many times.
That is so
I was living
funny.
in China when Dean Callan was living there.
Oh, wow.
That's not yesterday.
That is definitely not yesterday. I didn't know he lived there. And TREVOR, so for yourself, where did they when did you come on board and where did they find you?
Yeah, so if my mind does me the service that I hope that it does, it was 2014. I had been behind the bar a bunch in New York, and a bunch of my friends in New York had ambassador jobs, some international people as well. And there was a gentleman by the name of Jim Ryan, who we all know
Jim.
very well. Excuse me. And Jim had come into a bar that I was working at that time called Sweetwater Social.
Yep.
And he was coming to check out Tim Cooper and kind of just say, hey man, we have some of these open roles for William Grant & Sons. Do you know anybody? And of course it was a Wednesday. It was kind of a deader day. And I was there, and Jim had come and had some drinks, and I had worked for Jim, very similar to like what Eric had said, behind the bar at William Grant events, wherever. And Jim had left, and Tim said, hey man, I know you've been asking me, if I hear anything, yada, yada, yada. And so I reached out to Jim. I put my application in, and shortly thereafter went through the interview process, which I know, speaking to other people, is very different for all of us. And I was super excited to make the leap from behind the stick for all the years that I've been there, and essentially kind of take on a role that I know a lot of my close friends had already had and had mentioned, saying, hey, you'll really enjoy this. I think you'd actually even be good at it. If you're okay not making, money every night that you bartend and walk out with your money.
That is probably a very, very big, that's a very big change. And also the fact that you went to, well, we'll talk about it later, like working for a vodka company, which, back in the day, it was like, vodka was not cool. And then suddenly everybody was wearing t-shirts, vodka pays the bills, because they were like, oh yeah, our customers like this stuff. So you might want to have it.
I blame Simon Ford. I'm just saying. I
was pimping Ciroc when that was not cool, man. Imagine walking into Death and Company and being like, I work for Ciroc.
That's asking for a death wish back then.
Oh yeah, and Diddy is not cool to them. They're like, everybody's like, I'm like, yeah, I work with Diddy, and everybody's like, no, I don't care. Yeah, no, that was not a very cool thing. So let's talk about the interview process, because this is something I learned when Charlotte and I did a seminar at Tales this year, about brand ambassadors and, the different fits for the brand. There's some brand ambassadors who are all about menu placements and sales. It's more like a mini sales job. And Charlotte is like, nope, that's not the way we roll. We are very much about, our brand ambassadors are just about building the brand and building its brand awareness. And we fit the brand ambassador to the brand itself, which I thought was really interesting. And I do believe that should be commonplace for everybody, because you cannot work for a brand that it's not part of who you are. Because you can't be at a dive bar every night and then working for like a luxury cognac and like be showing those pictures. They just don't correlate. Like you can go to a dive bar, but that can't be your life. Like you have to absorb the world that you're in, and it should be natural, right? Because it comes across. So tell me a little bit about, so I know part of the interview process is how did you prepare for the interview? And then 2, I know you have to present something that you're passionate about. So, because I think a lot of brand people want to interview for brand ambassador jobs, and I think a lot of people lose the job in the interview. So because they don't prepare enough. So I'll start with you, Trevor. Like, how did you prepare for your job interview? Because it's very different than getting a bartender job, isn't it?
It is. It's there are some similarities. What I will say before I answer those questions is that, to be a great bartender doesn't make you a great ambassador. There are specific skill sets that aid you, and then there are other skill sets that really hamper your level of success. And I think to go back to your questions, for me, I've always been a nerd. I've always been like a science guy. I mean, the beard, the bun, and the glasses, it's my uniform.
I never think.
So I don't
think Trevor,
science.
Nerd and science dude, never.
Well, so definitely in my mind, I studied computer science, and I was, into math and numbers and all of those things. So, to touch on the passion side is, I essentially working for an Icelandic, or I should say at that time, going in to interview for an Icelandic vodka company, very small across the vodka category as a whole internationally. I think there's only like 8 or 9 Icelandic vodkas in the whole entire world. And Reka is one of the only ones that is sold here and distributed here in the US. I digress. But I went in and talked about—
though. See, that's a killed and brand ambassador right there. It's sneaking in the little brand nugget right there. Well done.
I had been at that time, this was like, you know, I don't know, 2010, 2011. I had been obsessed with ice, coincidentally, and making my own, like, I guess, high density or pure ice. Everybody wanted a huge nerd, right? So I had read a bunch of things. Camper English had a blog back then that was like all about directional freezing. And, you know, it was a big controversy. I shouldn't say controversy, but a question about how do you get such clear ice? Do you need to filter the water? Do you need to boil the water? Do you need to do this, that, then other?
Oh, yeah.
So next thing you know, I had figured this out. It took me a couple of years to figure it out. Following Camper, I should say Camper, more or less figured it out. And then I started to figure out how I could do it in my home and make it work. And to your point, the question was, discuss something passionate. Well, it was very easy for me to discuss this whole process of directional freezing with a cooler with no lid on it in my freezer and like doing that whole thing. And so I started with that and then obviously queued up the ice conversation, directional freezing, right into cocktails, because that's where my experience was. I had bartended for a very long time and said, oh, this goes great in this cocktail with this ice cube and this Moscow Mule mug kind of a thing, because I was leveraging all of the vodka things. But what I will say is that I read every word and even punctuation on the website for the brand. Now, looking back, I wouldn't, if I had to do it again, I wouldn't do that. I would definitely touch on the 10,000 foot view and like get some of the bullets, but I wouldn't feel like I would need to know everything, because at that point you're interviewing for the position, right?
Sure.
So you don't need to be an expert on day one. You just need to be able to show the skills that you would need to have to do the job day in and day out, whether you're with the distributor, whether you're on an interview, whether you're in front of bartenders, or whether you're frankly just behind the bar at a consumer event, making drinks and talking to every different type of personality that comes up.
No, absolutely. Because you're right. You don't need to be the expert on the brand. You should know a little bit about the company, like what William Grant's is about. You should know like what Reka is, so they're not like, you know, and you can't even answer that question because people want to be impressed that you at least know something about it. But you're right. They want to know your skills and they want to know you're going to show the fuck up. At the end of the day, if you don't show the fuck up, you're not getting the damn job. So like they need to know that. And you do that before the job even starts. Like just being a reliable bartender, you built a reputation as probably somebody who shows up. And people know like, yeah, you know, I can rely on Trevor. Trevor's going to be cool. He's going to be great. So I'm going to recommend them for the job. Which I think is a big thing. You start building your brand before you even get the job, and then you keep building it after you get the job. And we'll talk about that as well. But so Erik, yours is a little, so you did this event, you started interviewing for the job, you're working for Hendrix. But how did you like prepare for Hendrix? And what was your thing? What was your passion?
So I come from a little bit of a different interviewing process in the UK, but we had the same format, the same idea behind it, that we were supposed to show something that we are passionate about in maybe a less of a maybe intimidating setting that the one that most interviews nowadays are in our company. It's maybe not intimidating is a great word, but it's I think a lot of ambassadors feel the pressure is on when they're presenting for that. But I think mine was a little bit lighter in terms of that when I was working essentially with it was more of a work with to see how I fit with the brand and with the team. Okay.
You actually went out into the field?
Yeah, we did events in London back when before my before we could sort out the whole visa situation with Hong Kong, which is it's a lot of paperwork, I can say. So in the meantime, I was working a little bit in the UK market and with a global team there. So that was really good. But what I can recommend young brand ambassadors or bartenders who are going in for a position as a brand ambassador is, like Trevor said, it's not about knowing the details of the brand that much, but getting the whole, like the DNA of the brand a little bit more, and getting that kind of understand what it is about and what the feel is. And it's also, once you get that and you feel that it's something you're comfortable with, then it's much easier. If you get to know the DNA of the brand and you say like, this is not really where I'm fitting in, your job is going to be much harder at the end of the day.
No, I agree. Sorry, I hear my daughter yelling, and now my dog, my foster dog is now growling. It's very learn. My foster dog and my daughter, they're not simpatico. And my daughter's had a dramatic day at school, the online school. Good girl. Anyway, life at home, everybody. This is what happens. So that's really, I do believe the DNA, especially for William Grant, it seems to be a thing that you have to be part of. And Hendrick's is like a quirky, definitely unusual gin, as your line goes. So what did you have to present? What was your passionate thing? What were you passionate about?
Well, what I was passionate about is, I would say, like exploring it sounds kind of vague, but it's exploring the world, but also how cultures interact. And I think it's how I told and how I presented that to, the global ambassador and some of the global team, that they felt that I was the person who would help to build the bridges at that point between what is essentially a Scottish gin infused with roses and cucumbers in 10 countries in East Asia. Who are not really big gin drinkers to start off with, like in China, Japan, Korea, Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia. The gin culture is there a little bit, but it was about building those bridges between who we are as a brand and the liquid to who lives in that part of the world.
That is very cool. And it is definitely a different market. I've traveled to Asia quite a few times when I worked for Anheuser-Busch. After I left Diageo, I went to the beer world for a while and had to go to Korea, and I had to go to Singapore, actually not Singapore, Asia, Shanghai. And actually I was very happy that Michaela and Chris were both there when I got there. So I had some people to connect with, and the culture is very different, and it is, expand, getting to know them. And it's definitely a challenge. Being a brand ambassador is a challenge enough. And, going into a different culture is definitely very interesting, and brings a whole nother nuance to it. So then you got to come to America, which we'll talk about, because that's a whole nother world, right? Especially in Donald Trump era. But before we go there, what is everybody drinking? What are you drinking, Eric?
So I actually did chat to Trevor a little bit about this earlier. We cheated, and
and by the way, nice plug on the brand before you got your little nugget of information in there.
Yes, of course. That kind of comes automatically now.
Yes.
So Trevor and I have done a couple of seminars about the Vesper Martini, the origins of it, but also the fun facts and a little bit of a Bond trivia, which was a lot of fun. So the Vesper Martini is obviously a drink that Trevor and I share, kind of not only because both Hendrick's Gin and Reka vodka is in it, but it's something that we both kind of like, dressing up in a black suit and a black tie, and
I can totally see that. You guys wear that well, and I love a good Vesper. And that's the one thing we talk about. It's like, so how often do you guys partner together? Do you ever get to partner together for events or on menus? Like, do you guys help? I know you don't have normal KPIs, so like getting menu placements and sales plays, but I'm assuming you must have those conversations with people, or no? Like, meaning, like, if you're at a bar, like, hey, would you consider putting in a menu? Like, do you ever have it just in casual, just to kind of?
I'll take it real quick and then pass that over to Trevor. I think that it's not something that we're KPI on, but it's something that we take pride in. It's something that our team appreciates a lot. And it's something that we want to do. We want to see our products. We want to see Hendrick's and Reka on menus in the bars that we love. So even if it's not technically on our KPIs, it's something that we do anyway.
And for those of you who are watching and don't know what a KPI is, it means key performance indicator, because that was something, trust me, I think I worked for a brand for 5 years before I knew what it meant. And I was actually the manager, and I was writing the word KPIs. I'm like, I don't know, what's the goal? I don't know. It seems that now. I was like, what exactly does that mean? So key performance indicators, how they measure if you're being successful or not. So just a little inside language.
In a pre-COVID world, we did get to do a bunch of events together, Trevor and I. James Beard Media Awards to name one. We did that several years in a row together. But Trevor, what's your take on this?
Trevor,
So I think,
and working with accounts.
I'm with you, Elaine. I didn't know what a KPI was. I was right straight to the acronym book, like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know what this means. But I think that it's different for all of us, right? I think that to Erik's point, you know, we have a range of relationships. We go all into different bars all the time. We love to frequent similar places, no different than you saying that, you know, visiting Michaela and Mr. Lauder, you know, over there, where you feel familiar and you feel comfortable, and you know there's that extra socialization. So having our brands in places where we enjoy those things just facilitates everything. Everybody wins in that scenario. So whether it is, you know, oh my God, they have Reka on the menu here, we should definitely go there and have some drinks and meet about whatever it is that we have to. Erik and I are planning this. Let's go to employees only and have espresso martinis because Dev Johnson is probably there. He's always a good time. And God, employees only has to be our work office today. I sound like such a jerk, but you know, the reality is that it is part of the job and it is part of the business. So why not enjoy and still get some work done? And you know, I guess tick some KPIs.
Yeah, tick some KPIs. I spend some money here. Well, that's the greatest thing. It's like you guys, your jobs are very different in the fact that it's like what before COVID happened, and I know it's changed definitely some of the things you guys are both doing. So like, what would be your like week? Like, what was your goal for the brand? Is it just brand building activities with consumers and trade? Is it all trade? Like, and what would be some things you would do? Some fun things.
Erik, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think there's a lot of insight is a big thing it's a big part of what we do. We spend obviously quite a lot of time in bars and speak to bartenders, and it's a lot of bars a lot for us, and it's a really important place for us to be in as our brands. But when we also know that the corporate side of it, they don't know exactly, they don't have the same knowledge and experience that we have there. So the transferring information and insight from what is the bar scene right now and what it's all about, that is really important, I think.
So that's an interesting point. Actually, I want to say, so do you have, because it's one of the things I thought was really important, and I only learned it as somebody who's been working in this industry for 20 years, and I've worked on the marketing side and on the brands, like in the field side, is like, I think brand ambassadors, and I think brands don't take advantage of it enough, and sometimes brand ambassadors don't know how to utilize it to work with them, is working with the brand team. Like, you were on the street every single, you know, well, we were on the street every single day. You're inside, you're talking to bartenders, you understand. So do you think it's important for you as brand ambassadors to understand what the marketing goals are for the brand? Like what they're working towards, so then you can actually feed information back? Do they ever share that kind of stuff with you?
I was just going to say that's imperative, right? Like, you know, one team, one dream in a big way is kind of the focus. Now, I know Erik can speak to this a little bit different because he works on a brand that's obviously a lot bigger than Reka is. But so he has a team, he has other ambassadors. I have been a one-man show for a long time. So, you know, for me, it's imperative to know exactly what we're doing marketing wise, to know where I should be spending my time, how I can judge stuff up, or where I should focus my energy if I do have some free time. And I think for me, that over the course of the last 6 years has definitely helped in a huge way, getting Reka maybe into deeper pockets of smaller cities, or, you know, driving an activation maybe a little bit farther where people may not have even, you know, heard of it before.
No, I think that, and it probably makes you feel more important, right? You're part of the team. You're not just, I think there's a big mistake I've seen a lot of brands, because as a consultant, I've worked with a lot of companies where they're training a brand and there's a separation. They're not telling their brand ambassadors what their goals are, and their brand feels separated. Like they just feel like this tool out there in the field rather than part of the team itself. So as you're saying, it's really important for you to be like one team, one dream. And Erik, so being part of Hendrix, which is such a global, is it a global initiative now, or is it for you, you guys are more focusing on like the American initiative, and then there's a global, maybe some things overlap? So
yeah, it completely overlaps. We are about 15 or 16 brand ambassadors in the world now. We're only 3 in the US currently. But what we do here is it's quite similar to what's happening elsewhere in the world. Some of what the initiatives that we do here, that we have created here, are actually being copied outside in other markets. And we also we look at some other countries and see what they're doing and see what we can take from them. So we do have quite a lot of communication between us. But because Hendrix Gin has had such a big focus on bars and the on-premise, so to speak, then I think that our voice has been coming out quite well, I would say. But and we all know that we want to build our brand in bars, so we get it in the hands of bartenders. So because in the end of the day, gin is the only spirit really in the world that you don't really drink neat unless you're a gin ambassador. So you need to mix it.
Or you're going through COVID and you're really stressed, and then shots of gin seem to just fall into your head.
That has happened. But typically you need a bartender to mix the drink for you, or if you're your own bartender. So mixing the drink. So that's why the bar scene and the bartenders, and they're so important for us as a gin brand, but also particularly as Hendrix. So getting insight from other places in the world, but I would say like we've been on the team for many years now, the US team. So we come up with our own plans, and typically other markets adapt them.
So do you come up with, so as brand ambassadors before and even now, so since you don't have normal KPIs, so if you hear what the brand team is doing, so what their goals, so you're in that meeting, right? So you're able to contribute back some information from stuff you've seen out in the field, which is really probably helps them look like rock stars because they're getting insider knowledge. You then present like, okay, so based on what you guys are telling me and based on the budgets I have, this is my plan. This is what I want to do. Like, how does it work for you? Are you presenting your own plans and like, this is what I think I should do to help further that? Yeah.
Yeah. We have a budget for events, kind of discretionary budget, and we have a travel and enjoy martinis kind of budget. So for the budget that we create bigger programs with, those are the ones that we basically pitch ideas to our teams. We develop them within the team first, and then we pitch them, and then they just get a sign off, or we need to polish them a bit.
Polish them. And Trevor, is that the same for you?
Yeah, it's very similar. There are less people to present my ideas to.
I was like, do you present to yourself? Like, who do you present to? I think that's a great idea. How about you? Is that good? That's good. Let's go.
It's
with a mirror.
Let's get out on the field and do it.
Yeah. I think it needs $500,000. That sounds good to you, son. Let's go. Check. So who do you present to?
Yeah, so I mean, for me, I more or less put together, if it's really extensive, I'll put together a PowerPoint deck and present it to my brand manager. And sometimes I have to then present it to her manager. And then if it's really a big time, then I will go all the way up the chain, all the way. You know, I think that it depends on what it is, right? One of the big components would be budget. Two would be like, is it aligned with any of the other programs? Are there any functions that we can kind of get in on to multiply this, or, you know, get all of the juice out of this squeeze? You know, it is a case by case basis.
So, okay. So we'll say one last question on this. It's like within COVID. So obviously you guys had to transition everything, right? So it's like whatever your plans were, you had to switch it all to going online. So did you have to like come up with a presentation and be like, okay, this is what I plan on doing for the next 8 months, you know, or 6 months? Everybody probably thought 3 months, and it was like 6 months. And Trevor, you guys did two very different things. You went full on video with your wife, and Eric, you did very different things. You had Dale, and you did a few other faces. So Trevor, tell me about like, did you present that plan and like a budget, like I'm going to do these things with my wife?
So I'm gonna say, you know, I'm not gonna share the full, but
Sure.
I'll share with what I can, which is that I think everyone didn't really know what to expect, right? And I think for all of us, when I say us ambassadors, the job was drastically changed in a matter of a week or less. And all of a sudden, there was no understanding of how long it was going to be. Either people were projecting, oh, maybe it'll be until April or May, or by June we'll be good. We'll see. I'll see you at Tails, kind of a thing. July will be great. So I think as all of those ideas kind of started to net out really quickly in that week, you either came up with something or, you kind of continued to try and work out what it was. Luckily for me, my wife is an incredible woman. She is sensationally funny. She loves to insult me regularly, and I find it purely entertaining. I do not take it personal at all. So she had been asking me probably for at least since I met her, more than 2 years, hey, we should really do this cocktail thing. And of course I was like, I got no time to do this. I'm gone 3 weeks out of the month. And then the week that I am home, I'm like, I want to spend time with you and have somewhat of a, I'll say in air quotes, normal life. But the reality is that we just kind of set up the camera. Obviously, we all have a wealth of knowledge when it comes to cocktails, specifically vodka cocktails. I'll brush my shoulder off. But so, that was it. We, you press record and off we go to making a cocktail. And she, has not as much knowledge when it came to cocktails. So there was a bit of a, a funny, tragic side to the videos. And again, you just try to have as much fun as possible, especially when no one knew what to do, like at that point, and no one knew how long it was going to be. So no, I did not present a plan. I posted the first video, and then like my brand team was like, oh my God, like your wife is really funny. And I was like, yeah, I know, I live with her, you know. And then, it was like, okay, kind of what can we do? And I started thinking about all these other ideas. And then it was a bigger conversation that was like, oh, okay, which direction do we go? What do we do now? Or what do we do next? And I think ERIK has a little bit of a different story.
He definitely has, but I want to know, were you able to tie it in at all at sales? Like, were you able to be like, all right, so like you can buy Reka, and I haven't had a chance to watch all of them. I didn't know if that ever transitioned to that.
No, so I mean, my take is always like kind of slipping them in where it's appropriate. I don't like the in your face stuff,
But consumers are easily led. Yeah, exactly. You have the bottle there. I know. I even have my brand that I'm like, I have to like hold it up, Habali in the room. But I do find that consumers, and I'm sure if you guys agree, like that, I don't know if you will, that consumers, if you just tell them this is what they need to like, you should use this, they'll just use that. They're like, okay, they want to.
In a lot of ways, those videos, I got a lot of messages asking me, where can I get Reka, right? Or a different question as it related to an ingredient or the method of the cocktail. And it's like, I know I was making that blatantly obvious. Like, listen, message me. What are we doing? I'm a bartender with no clientele. Yeah. So please send me a direct message. Ask me any question. Glassware, tools, ingredients, and then obviously Reka. So yes.
And there you go. So it was a great, very natural brand building exercise. It probably turned into something, which is, these are. I wonder what it's going to be like when we go back to like normal times and we go out and like, will that still be part of I think it's still going to be part of our world. We'll be out, but will we still be doing that? So ERIK, yes. How about you? What did you're definitely doing something different. Your Instagram is different than, Trevor's a lot of videos. Yours is it's a lot of ERIK.
Yeah, I tend to post pictures about myself and cocktails, and now recently quite a lot of cooking as well.
Nice. And you've been doing a lot of things with Dale DeGraaf.
Yes, so we actually had this program running last year where we traveled around the country and talked about the evolution of the martini. Mm-hmm. Rather, Dale wrote, obviously, and he was presenting it, and my job was more to make the drinks and to serve the drinks and talk about how Hendrick's fits in them, and also about what Hendrick's Orbium is about, which is a Hendrick's gin infused with wormwood, lotus blossom, and cinchona bark. Yes, thank you very much. It's great in martinis. But so that program was running last year, and this year we had mapped out 10 cities to go to, and it was all sorted, all done, thus the plan was all in place, and we managed to hit Denver and Tampa and then come COVID. So what we did then, and my brand team said like, so what's your plan for this year? I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do this online because I think I personally like Orbium a lot. It's great in martinis, but also I think it's a fantastic opportunity to talk about the evolution of the martini, which is such an iconic cocktail that and there's so many stories, and especially young bartenders who have heard maybe that story or this part of the story, but to puzzle the whole thing together and get the more comprehensive understanding of it. So that's
I sat through the presentation. We did the USBG thing with you and Dale, and I thought it was fantastic. Such an engaging way of doing it. You guys really have down to a science. So,
well, Dale is obviously presenting it all and stuff. But we started doing this online, and the first ones was maybe when the baby starts walking, it's a little bit fumbling and tumbling and tripping over. But we found the format that we wanted to use, and now we've done it about, I don't know, 12, 15 times online probably. So that's it works really well now.
No, it is a fantastic thing. So, and I know this is not the only thing, but I'm assuming, so besides what you're doing with Dale, are there other things now that you guys are both doing that maybe support accounts? Like, I don't know if you go out at all or like, yeah. So, what have you found?
A bit, trying to, it's that balance right now. And how much would you want to spend how much time do you want to spend in bars, and how do we do it responsibly?
Yeah.
And I have managed to work with a couple of bars actually, one up in Harlem, a place called Setepani, which is amazing. And I helped them develop their cocktail menu up there.
Oh, cool.
And not only Hendrix drinks actually, but a couple of other, we have a portfolio of spirits like Hudson whiskey, and apart from the breakout that. So that was really fun. And then there is another bar here in Brooklyn called Shelter, which I've also been working with a team and actually done one staff training with.
Very nice. So that's a big thing, right? So that's the one thing. I had this conversation last week with Tracy Eden and Adam from Barking Irons, and there are a lot of as much as we live in our bubble of world of like people are hardcore mixologists and they do their own menus. There's like 95% of the other bars who don't have a mixologist working. They have really talented bartenders, but maybe they don't have the cocktail making skill, or they don't do menus. And she said, one of the things, we just came in and we helped them with their menu because they don't have time. They're so worried about everything else going in the world. And I found this true back when I was doing this in 2005. Then there was nobody even had fresh juice. That's how old I am. It's like nobody had fresh juice, but creating a menu can be really helpful, and also not just making it all about your brands. Because realizing, for me, I always realized like they have to work with other people. And I work for Diageo. I literally could fill every spot because they would such a huge portfolio. But they'd be like, I would always ask them, what else do you need? They'd be like, actually, I need one. Actually, sometimes would be like, I need a Hendrix drink, and I need something from William Grant, because they worked with other people. And I'd be like, all right, fine. Like I would just put them on the menu, but 60% of the menu would be mine, and then the other I would get, because that's a good way of being a partner.
I think it's a great way of going about it, because we are in this is an industry where we share a lot.
Yeah.
And look at other industries in the world. There is no one who is actually doing it nearly in the same way that we do it in the bar industry. We do share a lot of knowledge. We share inspiration. We share a bunch of things, which is quite unique in the world if you zoom out a lot and look at other trades, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I always said this is the industry. Like if you want to learn, just ask. Somebody will be there to teach you.
Yep.
And that's one thing I've always loved, and it's changed a little bit over the year, but I find it very, very true. And Trevor, are you going out at all? Are you able to help bars, or what are you doing? Like, do you do supporting bars, or like, is it moral? Is it?
So I have a little bit of a different circumstance than what Eric has. I, over the course of, I should say, just during, and this is before COVID, I was trying to get my parents out of New Jersey and down. So I am in a multi-generational home.
Wow.
So going out is a little bit more risky and presses the envelope. So the way that I have supported and the way that the brand has supported is we've done a couple programs. Eric has been a part of one of our programs, which was Stand Fast, which was essentially trying to get bartenders back to work, whether that be them making a cocktail for us, making a cocktail and posting, them being and bringing their experience to life with our brands. That was a way for us to pay out of work bartenders. So that was one program. It was awesome. We on Reka, we did a beard program where we asked anybody to post, and essentially we were giving $5 for every post that was tagged for Reka Vodka to go to or towards the USBG for out of work bartenders. And then I don't know how many or how much details I can share now, but Eric and I and the rest of the team are working on another project that we are all very familiar with this time of year called Friendsgiving, where everybody kind of gets together and we're focusing, or I should say, we're attempting to channel that directed towards bartenders and bars now. That is in the works. I guess there's just a couple more tweaks, and then that will be done as well.
I'm sure everybody looks forward to seeing that. I'm sure it's gonna be something creative and really fun. And you're right, because Friendsgiving, it is a strange time of year where it is, not everybody can go home. This is my first year in forever. I'm not going home to my parents' house, so that's going to be very interesting. And we're hosting actually a Zoom cocktail hour for all my family. We're actually teaching my entire family. I have 8 siblings, my 17 nieces and nephews, who are all legal age, except for 2 of them, how to make cocktails. Yeah, over Zoom, like on Thanksgiving.
That's awesome.
So much fun. I started engaging with a group of Swedish people on Facebook here. There are like 7,000 members on there. So we had a cocktail making class in Swedish here, and it was so much fun because we don't get to speak Swedish that often. So that was fun. But we did something. I think an initiative that we started this summer, or that we had, was as Tales was like it's happening, not happening, and then when it was canceled. We created a little program like thinking of Tales of the Cocktail. So when Tales was supposed to have been in the 3rd week of July, we did a little New Orleans cocktails pop-up in the city. But it was a very small event, but it was a couple of people coming over, or a handful. But
I was wondering, so were you guys actually in New Orleans? Because I popped in for 1 and 2, but I thought it was just all online. Were you actually there?
Well, I did. We were at Orchard Townhouse in their garden, and we had like a table per person basically. And Naren was mixing up some great New Orleans inspired drinks there. But that whole thing was to support the bartenders and thinking of New Orleans that day, because so many bartenders, though we couldn't go. And then we built up the one that was during the actual virtual Tales of the Cocktail in September. We also had a similar program, essentially where we hosted the bars and we talked about the situation right now.
Right. I think it's great. No, I thought all the interactions, I saw a lot of stuff on Tales online, and it was like, so what was it, the series of like, so I met you at Tales series, which I thought was funny because that's, God knows it's a line we all say, like, I never met you at Tales.
A million times, right?
Yeah, it doesn't count. So one question I really want to ask you, which is something that actually Souther Teague actually asked me. I was telling him about a training program I was putting together, and he said, Lane, you know what I would love to know? I don't know how to work with a brand ambassador. Like, if I'm an account, like, how do I best utilize a brand ambassador? Like, how do I utilize them? Like, how do I work with them? He's like, I don't know. He's like, that would be something. I don't know if you have any suggestions of like how bar owners can best utilize you. I'm sure every bar is different for what their needs are, but I don't know. Any suggestions? Like, if I'm a bar owner, like, how do I work with you? I'll start with Trevor. I'll start with you first.
Yes. So
before
I think
COVID,
that,
I guess now during COVID, whatever, which way you want to play it.
Yeah, I think, well, before COVID, right? And I love Souther. He's the best. I think that it simply is getting in touch, right? And getting those dialogues started and just kind of figuring out what it is, right? That, what we do, what they do, how we can kind of leverage those two things together. It could be anywhere from, you know, again, so this is not an example for Souther because he's a very talented mixologist, but the reality is that it could be as simple as something of creating drinks or training staff, to something where, hey, I'd really love to get in your venue and do an event and, you know, either educate or bring a guest speaker in, or just kind of throw a party, right? That kind of just makes the community aware of your spot, our brand, like all of those things. It's like partnership at its best in every way, shape, and form. I think that, again, Eric was probably going to respond maybe just a little bit different, because again, I'm the one-man show over here.
No, but it also must be interesting for R&D, like they're R&Ding, like maybe probably like could drop off a sample, like
100%
product you've seen out there. I would think something like that.
And for a lot of us, right, because, you know, again, what I feel like a lot of people don't realize is that the industry is super small. And if you're in it for any bit of time, you realize how small it is, and that you can meet everyone very quickly, because it's just that compact. And that's one of the things that I love about the industry. But it's just drop me a note, right? It's like send me an Instagram or text me, or somebody knows somebody being like, oh, I really love Eric, to find out what's the new Hendrix drink that you guys are going for this year. And it's but a couple texts or you know, emails or texts away.
Yeah, Eric, so what do you, that's a good point. I was gonna say, Eric, what do you recommend? You just launched a new brand, right? So you have Orbium, right? So, and now Hendrix is gonna be doing, so like if, you know, I'm a owner of a bar and it's like, I don't know, how do I work with you? It's like, I know you have this gin, but yeah, I'd like to know more. Like, what's the best way?
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. And it, for so many years, Hendrix, we didn't have any other variations. So, and I think a lot of bartenders, at least the bartenders we were talking to, they knew the liquid. But when it comes to a more in-depth liquid education, it's something that like basically a deconstructed tasting of gin is something that we provided a lot of, and I've done it for many years, and it's my favorite presentation, where we talk about how gin can be made. Gin was made differently before Hendrix, essentially, but gin now can be, you know, there's 7,000 gins in the world. It's a very diverse category. So in-depth liquid training, but like exactly like Trevor says, all of these conversations need to be initial open conversations about what the bar needs and what the brand ambassador can provide. All brand ambassadors are quite different, but we still operate in a similar type of what we do, I suppose. But every bar is also different, and what every bar needs are different.
I guess it's better. Sorry, I was going to cut you off because it might be an easier way of doing this. So, like, is there an account that you don't have to name the account, but if you could think of somebody like you work really well with, like you guys you jive and you have a very good partnership, like where you do certain things for them and they do certain things for you. Is there anybody like that? Is there any account that you just really work well with and you're like, yeah, this is a good partnership? You know, we both benefit from working together.
Hundreds, tons of them.
Well, pick one. And why is it work? Why is your best
So,
partnership? Why is it work?
I guess, you know, without, you know, again, continuing to beat around the bush here and saying that every situation is case by case, it's really based on the relationship, right? It's based on that form of communication where I can literally say, hey, you know, is it possible to do this? Or they call me and say the same thing. And it could be anything, right? It could be over the years. I'll pick out an example, which is like, hey, you've come in, you've done staff trainings, you've done some events here. Do you know what? I'd love to throw a holiday party. Is there any way that you could give us, you know, some swag that you have? Or is there anything that you could, you know, kind of continue to build the relationship with my staff?
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that I'll go with.
Okay. Eric?
Yeah.
And keeping it up and up.
Yeah, no, but there's so many ways of doing it, and it's typically not a question of if the bar has Hendrix gin, but how we can kind of elevate it, and that is typically to have a cocktail on the menu. And we, as brand ambassadors, that is a lot of the end goal, at least commercially, for our teams.
Yeah.
But to support that, the bars that do have that, I mean, one of my absolute favorite bars in the world is Sweet Liberty, and to be in the bar and to see that they are to spend time with them, but also to invite them to, you know, we wanted to have Tatiana Moreno coming up and bartender us at BCB, for instance. It would, you know, engage with them in a deeper way. So we would take someone from that bar and help and have them share what they do to a larger audience.
So you can help elevate them and the people within it. So they can use your platform to kind of help build their own brand, right? So
I really like doing it that way. And it's not like it's an unknown bar we're talking about here, but in the end of the day, there's a lot of people, for instance, for BCB last year or 2 years ago, a lot of people who haven't made it down there yet and who would always have heard about it, and to actually meet someone from the bar and to talk to them and be like, oh, this is this person. And then they work with your brand, developing a drink that is on their menu so they can taste it basically at the event and then go down to Miami and try it.
They kind of become like mini ambassadors for your brand. You're also helping build them. You're also making them money, and they become mini ambassadors for your,
100%.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a strategy I agree with. And I actually always tell the brands I'm working with, I'm like, you want bartenders to work with you? You should hire them to work for you, and then they become
and pay them.
And pay them. Make sure you pay them. All right, so because I know we're getting long on time. So is there anything that gives you anxiety about your job? Like for me, like when I work for Diageo, the thing that gave me anxiety sometimes was like, am I working hard enough? Like, because sometimes you just feel like your job is so much, like, you know, I'm out, I'm in bars, I'm in restaurants, I'm doing whatever. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing enough. And believe me, I was killing myself, but I always felt like I wasn't working hard enough. And I was like, I don't know, it was just my own anxiety. Like, are they going to find out that this is not really a real job? Like, you know, that was my anxiety. Like, one day they're gonna be like, that's not a freaking job. Like, you know, and that was my own paranoia. So do you ever have your own anxiety about your job? Like, you know, because this is things brand ambassadors talk to me about. They're like, they have worries, like, and I hear their worries. So is there anything ever worries you about your job? You know, I don't know, anxiety.
Eric, you want to go first?
He's like, no.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think it's a little bit similar to you there, Lane. Like you want to be there for everyone, and you want to share with so many people and share, you know, what you do and the knowledge that you can help people with, but also the inspiration. And it gives me anxiety a little bit to know that there are thousands and thousands of cocktail bars in New York City that I can't possibly visit because there are so many. And that's only one city in my market.
Yeah.
And I look after the entire East Coast. So that whole thing it's a little bit overwhelming. And
That
sometimes I wish I was on a brand that was in 10 bars and you're like, get this into more bars.
Yeah. No, that's a real anxiety, because there's thousands. When I started, there was 5. There was PDT, Death and Company, Pegu Club, Flat Iron Lounge, and Milk and Honey. That was it. It was easy. We could all the brand ambassadors, 5 of us, we could all go to the same 5 bars and hang out with each other. It was awesome.
That was pretty much how I operated in Seoul, in Shanghai, in Bangkok, in a lot of those cities. And it got me more excited to come to New York City because it's just so vast.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How do you decide where to spend your time? Is definitely a hard thing. But we'll get into that. It's a whole, probably another conversation. Trevor, what
I think the anxiety question for me has evolved. I think obviously to both of your points, I think in the beginning it was, you know, am I doing the right job? This job description is so out of left field that you're not quite sure of whether or not you're doing the right job. And then for me, leaving the bar and then essentially getting I'll put air quotes on this, like a corporate job, it was like, oh my God, you know, these people have no idea what it was like to do what I do. And I don't really know what it's like to do what they do. So bridging that gap, I think in the beginning of the job was something that gave me a tremendous amount of anxiety, because I was like, I don't know. It's like the customer, right? I don't know this audience. I haven't worked in this type of a bar, or a French bistro versus a dive bar, or a college bar, or upscale, fine cuisine. So I think that in the beginning that was overwhelming for me. And then what you realize really quickly is that it's no different than waiting on a different customer behind the bar. Everything just starts to work itself out, and you're like, oh, I got it. Just because I'm not wearing a shirt and a tie, and I walk in with like ripped jeans and a bun and a beard, and I say the F word a lot, doesn't mean I can't fit in your box. I just now need to reposition myself to understand. So yeah, the anxieties, I will say for me, they've gone farther and farther, like I'm sure they have for you guys, because you just get more comfortable, right? It's no different than making a cocktail for the first time, or making the new menu when the seasonal change comes out. You then all of a sudden get accustomed to it, and you memorize the recipe, and you short step, and next thing you know, you're grabbing 2 bottles with one hand, and all of a sudden you're ripping through it and dancing to your favorite song, all while making the drink and throwing money in the tip bucket. Like, I love this job.
Yeah.
It's the best job ever.
I will say, and I know we still have a little bit. I was going to say, that's probably the biggest thing I always hear people say. It's like, just because you're a great bartender doesn't mean you'll be a great brand ambassador, as you said in the beginning. Yep. And learning how to do corporate is very different. Corporate and how corporate thinks, and they don't know how you think, and they have assumptions about you in a way. They're like, oh, they got it. And half the time they're not paying attention. You're like, oh, I realize that they're not even paying attention half the time, all the stuff that I'm doing. But yeah, doing that corporate. So if there's a skill set, like when you got to corporate, that you wish you're like, fuck, I wish I had known that beforehand. Is it the networking? Is it the PowerPoints? Is it expenses? Or is it all of those?
I think for me, I had a corporate job a long time ago, straight out of college. So I knew all of that. I was the guy that wore the t-shirt that said suits suck, kind of a thing, where it was just like, you tell me all this stuff about the bars. You've never worked in a bar. You've read all these reports, and you have all this analytic data that says this is what we should do. And I'm telling you, I bartended for 15 years in 3 different countries. That bartenders aren't going to like that. Yeah. And then it's like, to your point, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a bartender. And it's like, nah, yeah, I would pick bartenders over, and respectfully, I'll say the one trick pony that's only done that one thing, because we do think on our feet, and we are problem solvers, and we do roll with the punches. So going all the way back, like you said, great bartenders don't always make great ambassadors, but if you constantly are trying to figure stuff out, you eventually become successful, and the audience, because we've waited on people for a good portion of our lives.
And I think rolling with the punches is a big one, because they have their degrees and their doctorates and their masters, and they're coming and they are looking at the big picture. That was the one thing I realized. I'm coming from my experience, but they're seeing the world in a very bigger way, and they have their own goals and things. And they're like, yeah, we get it. The individual person doesn't like this, but the masses of the people that you probably have never met, because they don't go to bars like yours, they want this happening. So you have to respect both sides. Something I learned a little bit of the hard way. Erik, for you?
Yeah, no, I think that as much as the bar is typically the customer of our sales team, I think the bartenders are kind of the customer, or are the people that they're customer of the brand ambassador in a way. And I think if bartenders see it more that way, and brand ambassadors see it more that way as well, and the big company understands that dynamic, we are there for bartenders. That we are a resource that they should utilize, because in the end of the day, the money that they pay for the products is paying for brand ambassadors. That's just a simple math. So it comes with an added gift, if you wish, and that is that you have access to a brand ambassador.
You're like the complimentary glass on the side of the bottle. This is
bartenders listening, tuning into this, please reach out to us, because with things that you want help with, or whatever it can be, inspiration or education, or just chatting about opportunities in the industry. That's why we are here largely.
No, it is why we're here. It's why we're hosting this right now. And this is also, I was going to say, I always concluded. So this is also in compliments of the Beverage Brand Ambassador Academy. I'm actually launching an online training program to kind of help with some of these anxiety issues and things that be learning about corporate and networking and distributors and all that stuff. So you can get from A to Z a little bit faster. So a little bit, so the anxiety goes away, because we've all experienced it, and it is a hard transition, and that transition shouldn't take a year. It should be like, it should only take, a couple of weeks if you got the right training. It's like, oh, I got this. Yeah. And like, or at least a month. But anyway, so last final words of advice, like, for anybody who is looking to be a new brand ambassador, like they just came on, any words of advice to be like, yeah, don't do this or do this, like, Eric?
Go ahead, Eric.
Do your expenses.
Do your expenses.
No, but in all seriousness, the balance, it's all about balance here. Yeah. It's about balancing that we're not hired to be any corporate jockeys here. We really aren't. Yeah. But we do need to put on a suit and tie sometimes and be corporate towards our, towards that side. It is the balance between how we are with our customers in sense as bartenders and bars and how we deal with that, but also our companies also relying on us, and the reporting and the conversations are sometimes quite different. So balancing that, and also number one, balancing your life, your lifestyle. It can be a lot of fun, but it can also be a slippery slope, because we work with alcohol, and we have expense accounts. Yeah. So balance your lifestyle and make sure that you get a lot of exercise in. And
absolutely,
that.
I think that's great advice. Trevor?
I think everything that Eric said, right? I think balance is huge. I think that if I, in my 6th year of an ambassador, could tell myself of the first year, which is that you don't need to do everything right away. There is no manual that says that if you just do these things, you'll be great at your job. It's constantly changing. And then I think the other thing is like, get out there and try tons of different jobs, and if brand ambassador work is what you're destined for and you believe it's your dream, then get out there and work all these different types of jobs, because the brand ambassador job isn't just one way. Some nights we bartend, some nights we're in a corporate office presenting, other nights we're up at 9 a.m. on corporate calls talking about expenses that, have no interest of us, but it is a big facet of the job. And then again, echoing what Eric said about balance and responsibility, looking after yourself, taking care of yourself and your family and your loved ones, and have an amazing job and time doing one of the best jobs in the world.
It really is. It's one of the best jobs, especially when you work for a company that believes in you and you believe in them. That is really key. And balance is definitely key. Doing your expenses, definitely key. Take photos of your receipts when you're in the bar. Don't leave without doing that.
It's more an internal BA joke, but I think all ambassadors can sign on that one.
Can relate. So yeah, it's a little bit of corporate and you have to play a lot of different roles. Well, guys, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing your knowledge. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot out of that, and stay safe, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you very much, Elaine, for having us.
All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Elaine.
Bye.
Much appreciated. Bye. Respect.